What if the Bible was written to hide the truth about ancient civilizations? They told you civilization began with the Bible. Adam, Noah, the Tower of Babel. The stories you learned in Sunday school, in classrooms, in history books. But what if everything you've been told is only a fragment of the truth? What if humanity's earliest knowledge, the real origins of our civilizations, and even the gods themselves were documented long before the first word of the Bible was ever written? Beneath these sands, in the land we call Mesopotamia, civilization first learned to write. They carved their laws into clay, chronicled the rise and fall of kings, and wrote the stories of gods who walked among men. This was not myth, it was history. History so old that time tried to erase it, and yet fragments remain, whispering truths too vast for the modern mind. The Sumerians spoke of beings they called the Anunnaki, heavenly entities who descended from the skies, beings of immense power who created humans, not in their image, but as laborers, servants, and witnesses to their grandeur. And when humans defied them, when they dared to think independently, the gods sent a flood, an overwhelming deluge to cleanse the earth of their disobedience. Sound familiar? Noah's Ark? Genesis? The story you think began with the Bible. It did not. Scholars like Samuel Noah Kramer, one of the world's foremost experts on Sumer, have stated, every biblical story has its shadow in Sumer. The stories of creation, divine judgment, floods, and giants all existed long before the Bible took shape. But Mesopotamia was only the beginning. Even older civilizations existed, vast, ancient societies whose knowledge, religion, and architecture far surpassed what modern history initially acknowledged. Cities perfectly aligned to the stars, monuments carved with mathematical precision, astronomical knowledge etched in stone, knowledge that seems impossible for humans at that time. And yet, these civilizations, these teachers of mankind, were left out of history, hidden behind myth, their true power and knowledge erased, buried beneath centuries of sand, religion, and politics. Fragments survive, fragments that speak of divine instruction, of kings who were more than human, of floods that reshaped the world, and of knowledge gifted or stolen by beings from the heavens. The first clay tablets unearthed along the Euphrates stunned the world. The Epic of Gilgamesh described a king and a great flood, a man saved by the gods' warning thousands of years before Noah. Could it be that the biblical flood story, central to the idea of divine punishment and salvation, was borrowed, adapted, or even deliberately rewritten? Nineveh, discovered by Austin Henry Layard in 1849, yielded thousands of tablets chronicling lives, gods, and catastrophes. Voices from a civilization nearly erased from history. George Smith, the first to translate these tablets, declared, "If this is true, then the Bible is not the origin, it is a continuation." And yet, history books continued to claim the Bible was the beginning. Why? Because the truth was inconvenient. The real story of humanity, the teachers of mankind, the architects of civilization, hidden behind myths and scripture. The Anunnaki, gods of knowledge, power, and influence. Their cities, Eridu, Uruk, Ur, were more than settlements, centers of learning, astronomy, and divine instruction. Even older civilizations existed, older than Sumer, older than Babylon. Their knowledge and power systematically erased. What if everything you think you know, everything you were taught, is only a fragment of the truth? What if the true origins of humanity, the true teachers, were never meant to be remembered? Our journey begins here, in the sands of Mesopotamia, in the whispers of forgotten gods, in the secrets history tried to bury. But what if everything we think we know about ancient history began as a lie?
Beneath the shifting sands of Mesopotamia, history waited, silent, patient, almost mocking, until archaeologists began digging and uncovered a story the world had almost forgotten. In 1849, Austen Henry Layard, a British explorer, unearthed the ruins of Nineveh, the capital of the ancient Assyrian Empire. It was there, amidst broken walls and collapsed palaces, that he discovered thousands of clay tablets, etched in cuneiform, the world's first writing system. These weren't just records of trade or kings. They contained the stories of gods and men, stories that would later appear, almost unchanged, in the Bible. Among these tablets was one that changed everything: the Epic of Gilgamesh. A story of a king seeking immortality, of friendship and betrayal, and most importantly, of a great flood sent by the gods to cleanse humanity. Sound familiar? Yes. Noah, the Ark, the biblical deluge. Thousands of years before the Bible, the Sumerians wrote of Utnapishtim, a man warned by gods to build a boat to survive the flood. The parallels are striking. The lessons are the same. The message? Humanity must obey the divine, or face annihilation. And the story doesn't stop there. Other tablets described a paradise, a garden where humans were created from clay, and the gods said, "Let us make man in our image." Genesis 1:26 echoes these words, almost verbatim. Was the Bible really the origin of these stories? Or was it a carefully edited continuation, a repackaging of ancient knowledge thousands of years old? The 19th century British Museum curator George Smith was the first to translate these tablets. He was stunned. If this is true, then the Bible is not the origin, it's a continuation. And there were more discoveries. Tablets telling of kings who walked with gods, cities built with astronomical precision, and knowledge of the stars that could rival modern telescopes. Scholars like Zecharia Sitchin argued that the Anunnaki were not mythological beings, but advanced visitors from the heavens. The knowledge they left behind, mathematics, agriculture, astronomy, formed the foundation of Sumerian civilization and eventually the civilizations that followed: Babylon, Egypt, Greece. And it doesn't stop there. When archaeologists found the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, they discovered texts that had been deliberately removed from the canonical Bible. Books like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and the Gospel of Thomas told of celestial beings, giants, and forbidden knowledge, stories erased or rewritten to fit religious and political agendas. Enoch describes the Watchers, angels who descended from the heavens, taught humans technology and knowledge, and whose offspring, the Nephilim, became giants upon the earth. Genesis mentions the Nephilim, briefly, but the full story? Hidden for centuries. Why were these texts hidden? Because they challenged the traditional narrative. They suggest a world where humans were taught by visitors, where gods were not mythical but physical, advanced beings, and where the Bible may have edited these truths to consolidate power. What if the stories of Adam, Noah, and the Tower of Babel were only fragments of a much older history? A history deliberately edited, reshaped, and sanitized over millennia, so that humanity would remember only what someone wanted us to remember. Consider the Epic of Atrahasis, another Sumerian text. It recounts the creation of humans, the flood, and the divine council, the same themes as Genesis. The parallels are undeniable. Even the moral lessons, the punishments, the survival of a righteous man, all appear centuries before the Bible. Some scholars, like Giorgio di Santillana, author of Hamlet's Mill, suggest these ancient myths encode astronomical knowledge, cycles of time, and lost technologies. Others, like Sitchin, suggest the Anunnaki were literally the engineers of humanity, biologically, technologically, culturally. And here's the chilling part. The texts we have may only be fragments. For every tablet unearthed, hundreds were likely destroyed, lost, or hidden, meaning the true history of humanity may still lie buried, waiting to be uncovered. And the story repeats, over and over again. Floods, divine punishment, giants, celestial teachers, found in Mesopotamia, Egypt, Babylon, even reflected in Greek myths and later in the Bible. Why the repetition? Because these are not isolated stories. They are fragments of an ancient truth that was too dangerous to tell in full. The more we dig, the more evidence we find. And each discovery raises the same question. Was the Bible written to conceal a history far older than itself? The archaeological record speaks through clay, stone, and ancient writing. It tells of knowledge stolen, rewritten, or hidden, of humans shaped by beings from the heavens, of civilizations older and wiser than we were ever told. And as we peel back the layers of myth, scripture, and legend, we realize that history itself is not as it seems. The Bible, revered as the beginning, may in fact be a carefully edited continuation of stories older than time itself. And the question remains, how much of humanity's true past has been hidden from us, and who decided what we were allowed to know?
This is where we confront the hidden truths, and the revelations become even more shocking. What if I told you the Bible is more than religion? What if it is also a political document, a history rewritten to hide inconvenient truths? Almost 2,000 years ago, when the Roman Empire embraced Christianity as the state religion, the canon of the Bible was carefully curated. The Council of Nicaea, 325 CE, decided which books would survive and which would be labeled heretical. Some texts were destroyed, others hidden, and many altered to fit a narrative that would consolidate power. Among the forbidden texts were the Book of Enoch, describing the Watchers, angels who descended from the heavens, teaching humans forbidden knowledge. The Book of Jubilees, a calendar and history that challenged canonical Genesis. The Gospel of Thomas, secret sayings of Jesus, often contradicting mainstream scripture. Enoch tells of beings whose offspring were giants, The Nephilim. Genesis mentions the Nephilim briefly. The full story? Buried. These beings, some scholars suggest, were not myth. Zecharia Sitchin, author of The 12th Planet, argued that the Anunnaki were advanced visitors from another world who shaped humanity genetically and technologically. Others, like Giorgio de Sant'Anala, Hamlet's Mill, show that ancient myths encoded astronomical and scientific knowledge, lost or erased in later texts. Could the gods we read about in the Bible have been flesh and blood visitors, advanced beings who shared their knowledge only to have it hidden from humanity centuries later? In 1947, the Dead Sea Scrolls revealed something even more shocking. Many biblical texts had been edited or completely removed. Fragments hinted at truths that challenged mainstream religious doctrine. Knowledge that could have altered history, locked away for centuries. And history is full of these omissions. Texts describing advanced knowledge, pre-flood civilizations, and celestial visitors, all edited out or hidden. The story repeats across civilizations. Floods, giants, advanced knowledge, found in Sumer, Babylon, Egypt, even Greece. The repetition cannot be coincidence. It is a hidden thread, a lineage of knowledge deliberately obscured. Consider the Epic of Atrahasis, the Sumerian flood tablets, or the Enuma Elish. Creation myths, divine councils, and global floods. Parallels with Genesis are undeniable. What does this mean for our understanding of human history? Perhaps the Bible was never meant to teach humanity the full truth. Perhaps it was written to simplify, obscure, and control. The stories of advanced civilizations, their technologies, their gods, carefully rewritten or erased. Some historians suggest that knowledge was deliberately hidden to maintain religious and political authority. History, after all, is power, and controlling the narrative ensures control over generations. The question now becomes, how much have we been denied? What else was erased from history to shape our beliefs? The Nephilim, the Watchers, the pre-flood civilizations. Were they merely stories, or are they evidence of a world far older, far more advanced than we have been taught? And consider this. If the Bible, one of the most influential books in human history, can hide this much, then how much more has been erased from our collective memory? For thousands of years, humanity has been told a story, and the story we know may not be the truth. So now, the truth is yours to consider. If the Bible hid the stories of ancient civilizations, then how much more has been hidden from us? What knowledge lies buried beneath the sands of time, beneath the ashes of destroyed libraries, beneath the scrolls and tablets we may never find? Because sometimes history isn't written by the victors. It's rewritten by the survivors. And sometimes truth is buried on purpose.